He was working through college on my grandpa's farm. I was thirsting for knowledge, and he had a car. Yeah, I was caught somewhere between a woman and a child. One restless summer, we found love growing wild on the banks of the river on a well-beaten path. It's funny how those memories they last. Like strawberry wine in 17, the hot July moon saw everything. My first taste of love, oh bittersweet. The green on the vine like strawberry wine. It's a beautiful song. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Counselor's Couch 101. You might recognize that lyric. I was reminded of it or introduced to it by Kevin Lake over on his channel. Kevin Lake has a channel entitled Homesteading Off the Grid. Homesteading Off the Grid. Y'all should watch it. It's a lot of fun. A lot of serious information and a lot of good humor, a lot of storytelling. Homesteading Off the Grid. But he mentioned that song sometime back, and it got me thinking. So I looked up that song, and I found it online, downloaded the lyrics, etc. And it's a powerful version of a first experience, right? And the person who sang it was Deanna Carter, but she didn't write the song. And it sounds terribly, terribly personal, as though she had to have written it in order to sing it as well as she does. But she hadn't written the song. She was singing someone else's work. But it brings up the question, though, how much do you reveal of your past intimacy to someone that you really care about? Now, I completely get it when you're sitting around talking with folks that you like, maybe they're friends, etc. But you're not in love with them. You're not trying to form a family with that other person. You start talking about your experiences, this, that, and the other thing. That's sort of one thing. And then when it comes to someone you really, really care about, my thought is, what do we reveal? I talk to a lot of young gentlemen. By young, I mean early 20s, anywhere from, say, 20 to 29. And a lot of times they're just confused about women. They just don't get it. And they're not getting along well with women. They're not interacting well with them. They don't communicate well with them. They don't know what women want. They don't know how to behave. And they think it's all a game that they haven't been taught the rules of, and they don't know how to play it, right? And in situations like that, women can blow guys out of the water by talking about previous relationships. And the guy's sitting there saying, this lady has a whole heck of a lot more experience than I do, and I think it colors the relationship. It changes the quality of it. And by that, I mean, the relationship you're trying to have with that person doesn't feel special. It just feels like another guy standing in line. So that's the problem with it. At least that's the problem I think with it. And I'm not the only one. I'm not the first one ever have that thought. I mean, it's been through everything our entire lives when people say they don't want to know about what someone did. If they don't love the person, particularly if a man does not love a woman, she can talk about whatever she wants. But if he truly loves her, they say they don't want to know. And that reminds me of another country and western song. I'm not a real big country and western fan, but I have heard music over the years. And one song said, how many, I wonder, but I really don't want to know. I get it. I know that sensation, that feeling. I tell folks, honesty isn't history. You don't have to blurt out all of your secrets in order to be telling someone the truth. If you don't want to talk about something, simply say that. I'd rather not discuss that if that's all right with you. And like that. And that's honest. Like I said, I've seen a lot of sitcoms where guys go on there and they start getting close to this subject. They're bantering around something, but they're not really talking about it specifically. And then all of a sudden, the woman looks like she's going to reveal all these intimacies she's had in the past. And the guy says, stop. No, I don't want to know. Don't know. Don't tell me. I don't want to hear it. I wonder why that is. Do you suppose it hurts? And that's a strange thing to say, but you wonder, does that hurt? Is that why they don't want to know it? Because they don't want to carry that knowledge around. They don't want to look at someone they love with this knowledge in the back of their head. And another aspect of this is kind of different when someone's a widow or a widower, or even if someone's divorced. It's rather different because obviously they had a relationship, and you can talk about the relationship and the issues in it without discussing intimacy, right? You can say, I don't know why I picked that guy or that woman. All we did was argue. That's not discussing the type of intimacy that people don't want to hear about. It's just telling the truth of relationship. I remember lots of examples of this. A friend of mine, my best friend from high school, bought a house, and I invited all the neighbors from around the neighborhood on a couple of blocks. He invited them all over for an open house because he wanted to get to meet them. He didn't know any of them. He was new to the neighborhood. So he just said, open house, stop by if you want, say hello, get to know your new neighbor, right? So I dropped by just to support him and to get some free food, I think, at the time. But at any rate, there was a group of people in the living room gathered around a table. They're sitting on like bar stools and so forth, and they're just talking and drinking coffee or Pepsi or whatever it was. And this woman, somehow the two ladies were talking. They're like the center of the conversation. There was a bunch of people standing around kind of listening in on this. They were talking about vacations. This one woman over here had been to Europe and had talking about visiting Switzerland, et cetera, and they were talking about mountains. And so this other woman mentioned some other mountains that she had visited in the United States, and she was going on and on and on about how beautiful it was, and et cetera, et cetera. And the man standing behind her was her husband. The husband was a new husband, like the marriage was quite young, less than a year. And so the first lady asked the second lady something about, well, what'd your husband think of that? Meaning the guy standing behind her. And the second lady said, I was with somebody else at that time. And I could just see this husband melt. I could just see him sort of like, just everything got rigid. It's like he's not trying to be offended or anything, but he's melting. I think he was embarrassed by it, right? Because they were talking about staying in a bed and a breakfast someplace up in the mountains and how long they stayed there and what a wonderful time they had, and it wasn't him, right? So do you think that made him feel good? Do you think it brought them closer together? I often wonder if they went home that night and argued about something else inconsequential because of that emotional impasse right there at that moment. Maybe they didn't. There are couples who can talk about past intimacies, and apparently it works for them. I'm not sure it works for everybody. Most of the people I talk to, I just get the sense that it doesn't work. They don't want to bring it up. I mean, the person doesn't want to hear it, so they don't bring those things up. Several times I've heard people say, regarding intimate and very personal relationships, very serious relationships, they say, you can ask me anything and I will tell you the truth, but be sure you want to hear it before you ask, right? I think that's fair enough, right? If something's going to hurt you, I don't want to share it if I don't have to. But if you demand my honesty, I will be honest with you, right? What is it that people say they want in a relationship every time you talk to folks? They say they want someone who's honest, someone they can trust, someone they can be open with. Yes, we can be open up to a certain point, right? I've heard a lot of stories from ladies, and I apologize, ladies, please forgive me, but it's just different between men and women, right? Women can be victimized in ways that men sort of can't. They say you can't rape a man, you can't rape a willing, but I hope you know what I mean, because of course things can happen to males, of course, but we're talking about that kind of relationship. You can't, a relationship between male and female, you can't rape a man if he doesn't want to be raped, right? But women, things can happen to them. And I've listened to a lot of stories from a lot of ladies about traumas that they've gone through in a sexual nature. And sometimes it's hard to listen to it like that, but I can do it, right? I'm able to, as they say, sit with it. I can sit with it and let them tell their story because I know they need to tell it. We need to get it out. We need to heal it, heal the wound that it caused, right? So I can sit and listen to that. But if it's someone I care about, Ooh, I don't want to hear it because I want to murder someone. Whoever harmed that dear, sweet woman whom I'm crazy about, I want to murder him. I don't want to hear it because I don't want to get that angry and I don't want to be that hurt. But it seems like, as I've said recently, we all have baggage and we're bringing it into relationships, right? So we're back to how much are we supposed to share with one another? And I hate to keep copping out like this, but it really depends on the couple. It depends on, how they feel about each other and how they feel about this kind of honesty, this information. Does it work for them or not? If they don't want to hear it, I kind of sort of say, well, then don't make them hear it. Unless there's a really, really strong reason that you must tell your partner something that happened, leave it alone if you can. If you're hurt and traumatized, yeah, you better discuss that, right? Here's another part of the song, Strawberry Wine. I still remember when 30 was old. My biggest fear was September, when he had to go. A few cards and letters and one long distance call. We drifted away like the leaves in the fall. But year after year, I come back to this place just to remember the taste of strawberry wine and 17. Here's a bridge part. It says, the fields have grown over, years since they've seen a plow. There's nothing time hasn't touched. Is it really him or the loss of my innocence? I've been missing so much, like strawberry wine and 17. Really gorgeous song, folks. And it just sounds like the singer, Deanna Carter, is telling the story of her life. She does it so well, but it's hard to listen to at the same time. If that was the lady I loved and we're going through these kinds of things, it would be difficult, even though she says the experience was bittersweet. She wasn't attacked or anything. Apparently, she was in a sort of a way initiating it. She was allowing it to occur. She was going along with the situation. He had a car. By the way, this is completely off the topic, but I love to analyze song lyrics. This one is extremely poetic, right? And the images that good songwriters come up with can really evoke a lot of things. They can touch a lot of things deep in us just by suggesting something subliminally, something under the surface. It says here, hot July moon saw everything. Well, there was a time when people say, well, he saw everything. In other words, he saw her body, her body that was uncovered, saw everything. And that line evokes that sort of a feeling where it's something dangerous and personal and very emotional, something that's intimate and being shared with someone else. Saw everything. I don't know how I got off on that, but I guess I'm going to be going through a period of time. I'm going to be thinking about song lyrics that carry a message that has to do with relationships and emotional landscape and etc. There's a lot of deep stuff in here, and they can evoke a lot of things. A lot of times songs will touch people. I remember being in a room and watching a song be performed, and a woman was sitting there, and she turned right around. She turned her back to the performers and she started crying because the song just reminded her so much of, she told us later, her first marriage and how abusive it was, and it hurt her so much. So songs can do that. How much should we reveal? I guess it depends on the people. And like I say, that sounds like a cop-out, but it's really true. A lot of sitcoms, they hold their hands and say, I don't want to know, don't tell me. How many, I wonder, but I really don't want to know. So, how much to reveal? 'Tis a question. Thanks for stopping by. I look forward to talking with you next time.